Professor Williams scratched another equation on the holographic board, while his students groaned. Advanced quantum mechanics wasn't supposed to be easy, but this semester's class seemed particularly unhappy about it. The classroom floated in one of the outer rings of Academy Station Meridian, and through the transparent walls, students could see 3 different suns from 3 different star systems. It was beautiful, but nobody was looking at the view. They were all staring at the impossible math on the board. "This problem set is due next Monday," Professor Williams said, turning to face the class. 50 questions. Show all your work," more groans. Lucy Chen, one of only 5 humans in the class, rubbed her tired eyes. She'd been at the academy for 2 years now, and she still wasn't used to competing with aliens who had 4 brains or could process information at light speed. The Vethrians were made of living crystal and never forgot anything. The Mindari could read thoughts and share knowledge instantly. The Grexians had 4 arms and could write 4 solutions simultaneously. And here she was, just a regular human with 1 brain and 2 hands trying her best. "Settle down," Professor Williams said. "If it makes you feel better, this problem set has made students cry for the last 30 years. It didn't make anyone feel better." The door to the classroom hissed open. Everyone turned to look. The semester had started 3 weeks ago, so new students were unusual. What walked through the door made several students blink in confusion. It was small, very small, about the size of a house cat, with dark blue scales that shimmered under the classroom lights. It had tiny wings folded against its back, a long tail that dragged on the floor, and large golden eyes that darted nervously around the room. It walked on 4 legs, and in its mouth it carried a datapad that looked too big for its tiny jaws. "Ah, you must be our transfer student," Professor Williams said, checking his tablet. "Pip, correct?" From the Drakari homeworld, the small creature nodded, dropping the datapad with a clatter. "Yes, Professor," it said in a high, squeaky voice. "Sorry I'm late." The transit tube was confusing. A few students laughed. The Drakari were legendary across the galaxy, ancient, powerful, and proud. They were dragons in the old Earth sense of the word. They could grow as large as starships, breathe different types of energy, and lived for thousands of years. They were scholars, warriors, and leaders. This little thing looked nothing like the proud Drakari ambassadors that appeared in news broadcasts. "Take a seat anywhere," Professor Williams said kindly. Pip looked around the classroom. All the desks were designed for human-sized beings or larger. He waddled over to an empty desk near Lucy and tried to climb up. His tiny claws scraped against the smooth surface. He tried jumping. His little wings fluttered, but he only got a few inches off the ground before falling back down with a soft thump. Someone in the back row giggled. Lucy felt bad for the little dragon. She reached down and picked him up, setting him gently on the chair. "There you go." "Thank you," Pip said quietly. His voice was so soft she almost didn't hear it. Up close she could see his scales were actually quite beautiful, with little flecks of silver that caught the light. "Now then," Professor Williams continued, "I'm assigning study groups for this problem set. Group 7 will be Lucy Chen, Bront, Crystalline, and our new student Pip." Bront the Grexian slammed one of his 4 fists on his desk. He was 7 feet tall and built like a tank. His people were warriors first and scholars second, but he took his studies seriously. "Professor, with respect, we need someone who can contribute. No offense to the new student, but what?" Professor Williams raised an eyebrow. "He's enrolled in this class just like you. Give him a chance," Bront grumbled but said nothing more. Crystalline, the Vethrian, simply hummed a frequency that meant disapproval. Her crystalline body refracted light in complicated patterns when she was annoyed. Lucy looked at Pip. The little dragon had climbed onto his desk and was staring at the holographic board with intense focus. His golden eyes moved rapidly, following each equation. His tail swished back and forth like he was excited about something. "Are you okay?" Lucy whispered to him. Pip turned to her and his eyes were shining. "This is wonderful," he said. "Quantum mechanics is so beautiful. Look at how the wave functions collapse. It's like poetry." Lucy blinked. She'd never heard anyone describe quantum mechanics as beautiful or poetic. Most people, including her, found it confusing and frustrating. Professor Williams finished the lecture and dismissed the class. Students packed up their things, already complaining about the homework. Lucy, Bront, and Crystalline gathered near Pip's desk. "We should meet tomorrow to start the problem set," Lucy suggested. "Library, maybe?" Around noon? Fine, Bront said. But I'm not carrying dead weight. Everyone needs to pull their share. I shall complete my portion with standard Vethrian efficiency, Crystalline chimed, her voice like bells. I expect the same from others. They both looked at Pip. The little dragon was still staring at the holographic board, even though Professor Williams had turned it off. Pip? Lucy asked. Did you hear us? Library tomorrow at noon? Oh yes, Pip said, snapping back to attention. Library noon, I'll be there. He paused, then added timidly, Professor Williams, may I ask a question? The professor, who was gathering his materials, looked up. Of course. The problem set is 50 questions, correct? Yes, that's right. Pip's tail swished faster. May I do more? If I have time? I mean, if there are extra problems somewhere, could I try them too? Just for fun? The classroom went silent. Students who were halfway out the door stopped and turned around. Someone laughed. Someone else muttered something in an alien language that Lucy's translator didn't catch, but the tone was clear enough. Mocking. Professor Williams looked surprised. You want extra problems? For fun? Yes, please, Pip said eagerly. I really like homework. It's exciting. Each problem is like a little mystery to solve. More laughter. Bront shook his massive head. You'll be lucky if you finish even 10 of the assigned problems, little one. These aren't simple calculations. Oh, I know, Pip said, not seeming to notice the condescension in Bront's voice. That's what makes them wonderful. Simple problems are boring. Hard problems are where the real joy is. Professor Williams smiled slightly. Well, I admire your enthusiasm. Tell you what, complete the assigned 50 first, and if you still want more, come see me. Thank you, Professor. Pip's whole body seemed to brighten. I'll do my best. The students filed out, still chuckling and whispering. Lucy walked slowly, watching Pip carefully pack his datapad and waddle toward the door. She felt a strange mixture of pity and curiosity. The little dragon clearly didn't understand how hard these problems were. He was going to be crushed when he realized he couldn't solve them. But there was something oddly charming about his enthusiasm. In 2 years at the academy, she'd never met anyone who actually enjoyed homework. Hey, Pip, she called out. Do you need help finding the library? For tomorrow? Pip turned, his golden eyes grateful. That would be very kind, thank you. As they walked through the curved corridors of the station, past aliens of every shape and size, Lucy couldn't shake the feeling that there was something different about this little dragon. Something the others had missed, but she couldn't quite put her finger on what it was. Can I ask you something? Lucy said. Why do you like homework so much? Most people hate it. Pip thought for a moment, his claws clicking on the metal floor. I don't understand why people would hate it. When someone gives you a problem, they're giving you a gift. They're saying, here's a puzzle, here's a mystery. Figure it out and you'll understand something new about the universe. How is that not wonderful? Lucy had never thought about it that way. I guess when you put it like that, it sounds better. Everything is homework, really, Pip continued, warming to the subject. The universe is full of questions waiting for answers. Every day is a chance to learn something new. I don't understand people who think learning is work. Learning is play. It's the best kind of play. They reached the residential section where students had their quarters. Pip's room was in a section designed for smaller species. Thank you for your help, Lucy, he said. I'll see you tomorrow at the library. I'm going to start on the problem set tonight. I can't wait. Lucy watched him disappear into his quarters, still not sure what to make of him. She headed to her own room, thinking about the 50 impossible problems waiting for her. Unlike Pip, she wasn't looking forward to them. But maybe, just maybe, his attitude was refreshing. In a galaxy where everyone competed to be the smartest, the fastest, the best, here was someone who just wanted to learn for the joy of it. She didn't know it yet, but that little dragon was about to turn the entire academy upside down. Professor Williams loved quiet mornings in his office. He would arrive early before most students were awake, and enjoy the peace while reviewing assignments and preparing lectures. This morning should have been the same as any other. But when his door opened and he stepped inside, his tablet immediately started buzzing. Not just one notification. Dozens. Hundreds. The screen was filled with alerts, all from the same source. Student submission received. Student submission received. Student submission received. The messages kept coming, flooding his inbox faster than he could read them. Professor Williams set down his bag and picked up the tablet, frowning. All the submissions were from the same student, Pip, the little Drakari who had joined his class yesterday, the one who had asked for extra homework. With a growing sense of confusion, Professor Williams opened the first file. It was problem number 1 from the assignment. The solution was there, complete and perfect. He opened the second file. Problem 2, also perfect. He started opening files faster. Problem 3, 4, 5, 10, 20, all perfect. All complete. All submitted at various times throughout the night. He reached problem 50 and sat back in his chair. The little dragon had completed the entire problem set in one night. The problem set that usually took students a full week. That made graduate students cry. That Professor Williams himself had taken 3 days to solve when he was a student. But the submissions didn't stop at 50. Professor Williams kept scrolling. Problem 51. Problem 52. His eyes widened. Pip hadn't just completed the assignment. He'd created his own problems and solved them. Variations on the theme, more complex versions. Simpler versions to demonstrate the underlying principles. By the time Professor Williams reached the end of the submissions, he was staring at 250 complete solutions. Each solution was elegant. Beautiful, even. Pip didn't just show one way to solve each problem. He showed 3 different methods. He included notes explaining which method was most efficient and why. He drew connections between different problems, showing how they related to each other. It was the kind of work Professor Williams would expect from a doctoral candidate, not a first-year student who'd attended one lecture. This isn't possible, Professor Williams muttered to himself. Nobody works this fast, nobody. His first thought was cheating. The academy had strict policies against using artificial intelligence to complete assignments. But as he reviewed the work more carefully, he noticed something. The solutions had personality. There were little comments in the margins. This part was tricky. And oh, this connects to problem 37. And I love how this equation simplifies at the end. No AI would write like that. This was someone who genuinely enjoyed the work. Still, he had to be sure. Professor Williams checked the academy's security logs. Every room and corridor was monitored to ensure student safety. He pulled up the footage from the library, entering Pip's student ID. The video showed the little dragon entering the library at 7 in the evening, right after dinner. Pip had wadded to a study carrel designed for small species, climbed onto the chair and started working. Professor Williams fast-forwarded through the footage. Hour after hour, Pip worked. His tiny claws moved across the holographic interface, writing equations, checking calculations, solving problems. He never got up except once to use the bathroom. He never talked to anyone. He never looked at outside resources. He just worked, and every few minutes his tail would swish happily, or his eyes would light up with excitement when he solved something particularly challenging. At 3 in the morning, Pip finished the last problem. He submitted it, stretched his little wings, and waddled out of the library with a satisfied expression on his face. The whole thing had taken 8 hours of continuous work. Professor Williams sat back, stunned. It was legitimate, all of it. The little dragon had actually done this. He needed to test this further. He couldn't just accept that a first-year student, no matter what species, could perform at this level. Professor Williams composed a message to Pip asking him to come to his office before class. Then he spent the next hour preparing a series of verbal problems. Questions with no written reference. Problems that required thinking on the spot, with no time to look up answers or formulas. Pip arrived at his office at exactly the requested time, looking nervous. "You wanted to see me, Professor? Did I do something wrong?" "Not wrong exactly," Professor Williams said carefully. "I received your homework submission." "Oh, good." Pip's eyes brightened. "I was worried I didn't upload it correctly. Was the formatting okay? I wasn't sure how you wanted the supplementary problems organized." "The supplementary 200 problems, you mean?" "Yes, those. I hope that was all right. You said if I finished the assigned work I could do more. I finished around midnight and I wasn't tired yet, so I kept going. Quantum mechanics is just so interesting. Each problem opens up new possibilities." Professor Williams studied the little dragon carefully. "Pip, I need to ask you some questions. Just verbal questions. To understand your thought process. Is that all right?" "Of course." Pip climbed onto the chair across from the professor's desk, his tail curling around the seat. Professor Williams started with a simple problem from the assignment. Problem 15. "Can you walk me through how you solved it?" Without hesitation, Pip explained his reasoning. His explanation was clear, thorough, and exactly matched what he'd written in his submission. Professor Williams asked about problem 32. Again, Pip explained it perfectly. Then Professor Williams asked a new problem, one he'd just created that morning, a variation on the homework that required adapting the principles to a different scenario. Pip paused for only 3 seconds, his golden eyes distant. Then he started talking, working through the problem out loud. His logic was flawless. He arrived at the correct answer in less than 2 minutes. Professor Williams asked another new problem, then another, then one so complicated that he himself needed his tablet to check if Pip's answer was right. It was. Every single time Pip solved the problem quickly, elegantly, and with what seemed like genuine joy in the process. Remarkable, Professor Williams finally said. Pip, I have to ask, how are you doing this? Do you have an eidetic memory, enhanced processing capabilities, some kind of neural implant? Pip looked confused. No, nothing like that. I just think about the problems. They're like puzzles. You look at all the pieces, see how they fit together, and find the pattern. It's fun. Fun, Professor Williams repeated. Most students don't find quantum mechanics fun. Really? Pip seemed genuinely surprised. But it's beautiful. The way reality works at the smallest scales, the way particles behave, the way everything is connected. How can that not be exciting? Professor Williams didn't know what to say. In 30 years of teaching, he'd never met a student like this. Well, your work is exemplary. More than exemplary. I'll be honest with you, Pip, this is doctoral level work. You've solved problems in one night that take most students weeks. Word is going to spread about this. Is that bad? Pip asked, worried. I didn't mean to cause trouble. I just really like homework. It's not bad, Professor Williams assured him. It's extraordinary. I just want you to be prepared. Other students might react strongly. He had no idea how right he was. By lunchtime, the entire academy knew. Professor Williams had mentioned Pip's homework to another faculty member in the teacher's lounge. That faculty member had told someone else. Students who worked as teaching assistants overheard. They told their friends. Within hours, everyone was talking about the little dragon who had completed a week's worth of impossible homework in one night. Lucy heard about it in the cafeteria. She was eating lunch with some human friends when a group of Vethrian students walked past, their crystalline bodies humming with gossip. Did you hear about the Drakari in Williams' class? The tiny one? What about him? Completed the entire quantum mechanics problem set in 8 hours. Plus 200 extra problems. That's impossible. Nobody works that fast. Williams confirmed it. Watched the security footage himself. Lucy nearly choked on her food. She remembered Pip saying he was going to start the homework last night. She'd assumed he'd get through maybe 5 or 10 problems before giving up. She hadn't imagined he'd actually finish all of them. Bront heard about it in the training gym. He was sparring with another Grexian when his opponent mentioned it. Your study group has that little dragon, right? The one who finished Williams' problem set? Bront stopped mid-punch. What? Check your messages. It's all over the student forums. Crystalline heard about it in the advanced mathematics lab. Another Vethrian approached her, frequencies modulating with excitement. Your study group includes the Drakari prodigy? Prodigy? Crystalline's body flashed with confusion. He only attended 1 lecture. Apparently that was enough. He solved everything. Williams is calling it the most impressive work he's seen in his career. By the time Lucy, Bront, and Crystalline gathered at the library for their study group meeting, they were all buzzing with questions. Pip arrived exactly at noon, waddling through the library doors with his datapad in his mouth. He hopped onto a chair at their table and looked at them with innocent, happy eyes. Hello, everyone. Ready to work on the homework together? You already finished the homework, Bront said flatly. All of it. Oh yes, Pip said. But I thought we were still meeting as a group. I can help if you'd like. Or we could work on different problems. Professor Williams said there's a whole database of practice problems we can access. Lucy leaned forward. Pip, how did you do it? How did you solve everything so fast? Fast? Pip tilted his head. It took me 8 hours. I thought I was being slow. Some of those problems were really tricky. Crystalline's body hummed with a frequency that meant suspicion. 8 hours for 50 advanced quantum mechanics problems is not slow. It's impossible. My species has perfect mathematical processing, and I estimate it would take me 40 hours minimum. Maybe I just got lucky? Pip offered. 250 times lucky? Bront crossed his forearms. I don't believe it. I don't understand, Pip said, looking distressed. Did I do something wrong? I only did what Professor Williams said. Complete the assignment, and if I wanted more, I could do more. I wanted more, so I did more. Lucy watched Pip carefully. The little dragon wasn't bragging. He wasn't showing off. He seemed genuinely confused about why everyone was making such a big deal about his homework. She remembered what he'd said yesterday about homework being a gift, about learning being play. Maybe he really did just love it that much. You didn't do anything wrong, Lucy said gently. People are just surprised. That's all? Oh. Pip relaxed slightly. Well, should we work on something together now? I find studying in groups is nice. We can share different perspectives. Before anyone could answer, Professor Williams entered the library. He walked directly to their table holding a data pad. He looked excited in a way none of his students had ever seen. Pip, he said, I need to talk to you about something. Something important. Professor Williams set his data pad on the library table where Pip and his study group sat. The other students leaned in, curious. Even Bront, who had been skeptical about Pip since day one, looked interested. For 200 years, Professor Williams began, there has been a problem that nobody could solve. We call it the Heisenberg knot. It's a quantum mechanics puzzle that combines relativity, particle physics, and dimensional mathematics. The greatest minds in the galaxy have tried to crack it. Some have spent their entire lives working on it. Pip's eyes grew wider. His tail started swishing back and forth under the table. I usually mention it to advanced students, Professor Williams continued, as an example of how complex physics can get. I've never seriously expected anyone to solve it. But given your performance last night, Pip, I thought you might want to look at it, just as a thought exercise. No pressure, no grade, just something to challenge yourself with if you're interested. May I see it? Pip asked eagerly. Professor Williams brought up the problem on his datapad and transferred it to the table's holographic display. Equations appeared in midair, complex and intertwining. Lucy looked at them and felt her brain hurt. She recognized maybe one symbol in every 10. Bront grunted and looked away. Even Crystalline, with her species' legendary mathematical abilities, hummed a frequency that indicated confusion. Pip stared at the equations. His golden eyes moved rapidly, tracking each variable, each function, each relationship. Nobody spoke. The library was quiet except for the soft hum of environmental systems and the distant murmur of other students studying. After 60 seconds, Pip spoke. This is wonderful. Wonderful, Bront repeated. It looks like chaos. No, look, Pip said, pointing with a tiny claw at a section of the equations. See how this part connects to this part? And if you rotate the dimensional axis here, it relates to this function over here. It's like a beautiful dance. Everything connects, Professor Williams blinked. I've never thought of it as a dance. May I try to solve it? Pip asked. Please? Professor Williams hesitated. He'd offered it as a curiosity, not expecting Pip to actually attempt it. The problem had stumped geniuses. Committees had worked on it for decades. You're welcome to try, he said slowly. But Pip, I want you to understand. This problem might not have a solution. It might be impossible. Nothing is impossible, Pip said cheerfully. Some things just take longer to figure out than others. Lucy smiled at that. There was something refreshing about Pip's optimism. In a competitive academy where everyone worried about grades and status, here was someone who just wanted to learn. If you're going to work on it, Professor Williams said, you should use one of the public study halls. They have better holographic projectors and more computing power. Plus, if you're working on something this significant, other people might want to watch. Watch? Pip looked nervous. I don't like being watched. It makes me self-conscious. I understand, Professor Williams said, but the Heisenberg knot is legendary. If there's even a chance you might make progress on it, the academic community will want to document your process. It's not about pressure. It's about learning. Other students could learn from watching how you think through problems. Pip considered this. If it helps others learn, then okay. Within 2 hours, Study Hall 7 had been converted into a viewing theater. The Academy's administration had set up a live broadcast that fed to screens throughout the station. Students from every department gathered. Faculty members came. Even the Academy's president, an ancient being called High Scholar Orthan, made an appearance. Pip sat at the center of the study hall, surrounded by holographic projectors. He looked very small in the large room. Lucy, Bront, and Crystalline sat in the front row, along with other students from Professor Williams's class. Behind them, hundreds of others filled the seats. "Is he actually going to try this?" someone whispered. "He'll give up in an hour," another voice said. "Nobody can solve the Heisenberg knot. I heard he's some kind of genetic anomaly, enhanced intelligence. I heard his species can process information faster than computers." The whispers died down as Pip began working. He started by reproducing the original equations in the holographic space, making them large enough that everyone could see. His tiny claws moved through the air, pulling and manipulating the glowing symbols. Then he started breaking the problem into smaller pieces. He separated the equations into categories, organizing them spatially: physics in one area, mathematics in another, dimensional theory in a third. He color-coded them. He drew lines showing relationships. He created a three-dimensional map of the entire problem. Hours passed. Pip never stopped. He didn't take breaks. He didn't eat or drink. He just worked, his focus absolute. His scales began to glow softly, a blue light that got brighter as he worked harder. Lucy had heard that Drakari scales glowed when they experienced strong emotions. Pip's glow wasn't from stress or fear. It was from joy. By hour 10, students started leaving. "Nothing's happening," they complained. "He's just moving equations around," but some stayed. Lucy stayed because Pip was her friend. Bront stayed because he was stubborn and wanted to see how this ended. Crystalline stayed because her pride wouldn't let her leave before the Drakari did. Professor Williams stayed because he was beginning to see something. The way Pip organized the problem wasn't random. There was a structure emerging. A pattern, connections that Professor Williams had never noticed before. By hour 20, Pip had filled the entire study hall with equations. They floated in the air like stars, connected by glowing lines. The problem had been transformed into a constellation of mathematics. Pip moved through it like a conductor leading an orchestra, adjusting here, modifying there, testing different combinations. By hour 30, word had spread throughout the entire station. Not just students and faculty, but maintenance workers, administrative staff, even visiting delegates from other worlds were watching the broadcast. In cafeterias and lounges and offices, people gathered around screens to watch the little dragon work. "He's been at it for over a day," someone said. "Does he even sleep?" "Drakari can go weeks without sleep if they're focused on something," another person explained. But the mental strain must be enormous. By hour 40, Pip's scales were glowing so brightly that he looked like a small blue star. His eyes were wide and focused. His tail swished constantly. Occasionally, he would make a small happy sound when he found a connection or solved a subproblem. Lucy brought him water and snacks, setting them nearby. "Pip, you should rest." "Almost there," Pip murmured, not looking away from his work. "I can feel it. It's all connected. I just need to see how." By hour 45, even the skeptics were impressed. Pip hadn't solved the problem yet, but the progress he'd made was extraordinary. He'd restructured the entire equation set. He'd found relationships that had never been documented. He'd simplified sections that had seemed impossible to simplify. "If he stops now," one professor told another, "his work is still groundbreaking. This is years of research compressed into 2 days." But Pip didn't stop. Hour 46. Hour 47. The holographic space was now a work of art, a beautiful structure of light and mathematics. Pip hovered in the center of it, his small wings fluttering to keep him airborne, his claws moving faster than ever. Hour 48. Suddenly, Pip stopped moving. He hung in the air, staring at one particular section of equations. His eyes were wider than ever. His scales blazed with light. "Oh," he said softly. "Oh, I see it now." Everyone leaned forward. The broadcast viewers held their breath. Pip moved to the center of the equation constellation. He grabbed one formula, twisted it, and connected it to 3 others. The connected equations pulsed with light. He did it again with a different set. Then again. Then again. Faster and faster he wove the equations together, finding the hidden connections, revealing the underlying structure. The holographic space began to shift. The chaotic collection of equations started moving on its own, drawn by Pip's connections. They came together like puzzle pieces locking into place. The structure compressed, simplified, elegant patterns emerging from the complexity. And then with a final gesture from Pip, everything collapsed into a single equation. One beautiful, simple, perfect equation that hung in the air, glowing softly. The study hall was silent. On screens throughout the station, viewers stared in disbelief. Professor Williams stood up slowly, his hands shaking. He walked to the holographic display and examined the final equation. His eyes moved over it, checking, verifying, looking for any flaw. There were none. It was correct. It was more than correct. It was revolutionary. He did it, Professor Williams whispered. After 200 years, he actually did it. High Scholar Orthan rose from his seat, his ancient face showing an emotion that might have been awe. We need to verify this immediately. Every mathematician and physicist on the station needs to examine this solution. For the next 6 hours, the Academy's greatest minds pored over Pip's work. They checked every step, every connection, every logical leap. They ran simulations. They tested predictions. They looked for errors. There were no errors. The solution was perfect. Not only had Pip solved the Heisenberg knot, but his method opened up entirely new areas of physics. His approach revealed principles that nobody had seen before. Questions that had seemed unrelated suddenly had answers. Technologies that had seemed impossible might now be feasible. When the verification was complete, High Scholar Orthan returned to the study hall. Pip was sitting on the floor, finally resting. His scales had returned to their normal dark blue. He looked tired but happy. "Young Pip," High Scholar Orthan said formally, "you have accomplished something that will change our understanding of the universe. Your name will be remembered for generations. How do you feel?" Pip thought about it, his tail curling around him. "Sleepy," he said honestly, "but happy. That was a really good homework problem. Do you have any more?" The hall erupted in stunned laughter. Even High Scholar Orthan smiled, something his staff said they'd never seen before. But not everyone was laughing. In the back of the hall, a group of Vethrian students watched with hard expressions. In the hallways, clusters of other species muttered to each other. In private messages and forums, conversations began. "This isn't natural. He must be cheating somehow. No species should be that intelligent. We need to do something about this." Lucy saw some of these messages and felt worried. Pip had done something amazing, but she knew how people reacted when their sense of superiority was threatened. She'd experienced it herself as a human among aliens who thought they were better. But this was different. This was bigger. Pip hadn't just done well on a test. He'd accomplished something that made entire species question their place in the academic hierarchy. She walked over to where Pip sat and sat down beside him. "You did great," she said. "Thank you," Pip said sleepily. "It was fun. Really fun. The hardest homework I've ever had." "Pip," Lucy said carefully, "some people might not be happy about this. They might say mean things or try to make things difficult for you." Pip looked at her with confused golden eyes.
"Why would they be unhappy?"
"I shared my solution with everyone. Now we all know more than we did before. Isn't that good?" Lucy didn't know how to explain academic jealousy to someone who didn't understand competition. How do you tell someone that others might hate them for being better, when that someone only wanted to help everyone learn? "Just be careful," Lucy said. "And remember, you have friends. You're not alone." Pip smiled at that, a small dragon smile. Then his eyes closed, and within seconds he was asleep, exhausted from 2 days of continuous work. The storm was coming. But for now, in this moment, everyone could appreciate what had been accomplished. A problem that had stood for 2 centuries had fallen. The universe had revealed another one of its secrets. And a little dragon who loved homework had shown them all that sometimes. Joy and passion matter more than pride and competition. 3 weeks after solving the Heisenberg knot, Pip walked through the academy corridors with his head down. He'd enrolled in 7 more classes, the maximum number allowed for any student. Every day was full of lectures, labs, and assignments. Every day was wonderful. But walking between classes had become uncomfortable. Students stared at him, some with admiration, many with resentment. A group of Vethrian students watched him pass, their crystalline bodies humming with disapproval. 2 Grexian warriors deliberately blocked his path, forcing him to waddle around them. A cluster of Mindari students went silent as he approached, then resumed their telepathic conversation once he passed. making sure he knew he wasn't welcome. Pip didn't understand it. He'd thought the other students would be excited about the Heisenberg knot solution. He'd thought they'd want to discuss it, explore what it meant, maybe find new problems to solve together. Instead, they seemed angry at him. In his advanced xenobiology class, Professor Hendricks assigned a project cataloging species variations in the Orion sector. It was supposed to be a semester-long project done in teams. Pip finished it in 3 nights, working alone because nobody wanted to be his partner. He cataloged 3,000 species variations, cross-referenced their evolutionary patterns, and created a predictive model for future evolutionary development. Professor Hendricks spent a week verifying the work, then quietly submitted it to the Galactic Biology Institute, where it would likely become the standard reference text. In his engineering fundamentals class, students were supposed to design improvements to the station's water recycling system, a practical hands-on project meant to teach basic engineering principles. Pip redesigned the entire station's power grid instead, as a warm-up exercise before starting the actual assignment. His design was 20% more efficient than the current system and would save the Academy millions of credits annually. The engineering faculty was now debating whether to actually implement his design. In his galactic history class, Pip wrote a 500-page thesis connecting the development patterns of 47 different civilizations across 12,000 years. He identified common threads that nobody had seen before, predicted future political developments, and suggested 3 new theories about how societies evolve. His professor called it the most sophisticated historical analysis she'd seen in 40 years of teaching, and in every class, Pip did it with the same innocent joy. He never bragged. He never compared himself to others. He just loved learning, loved solving problems, loved discovering new things, which somehow made it worse for the students who watched him excel. Lucy saw it happening. She watched Pip become more isolated, more alone. Even as his academic achievements grew, she tried to help, sitting with him at lunch, walking with him between classes. But she had her own studies to worry about, and she couldn't always be there. Bront saw it too. The big Grexian had initially dismissed Pip as too small and weak to be worth respect. But after watching Pip work for weeks, something had changed in Bront's thinking. One day he approached Pip after class. "Little dragon," Bront said, "I was wrong about you." Pip looked up at him, surprised. "Wrong about what?" "I thought strength only came from muscles and combat prowess. My people value physical power above all else. But watching you solve problems that warriors could never touch, I understand now. There are different kinds of strength." Pip's tail swished happily. "Thank you, Bront, that's kind of you to say." "Also," Bront added, "if anyone gives you trouble, tell me. I may not be able to solve quantum mechanics, but I can discourage bullies very effectively." Even Crystalline, who had been coldly professional toward Pip, started to soften. Vethrians were proud of their mathematical abilities. Having a little dragon surpass their entire species in computational skill had been hard for her to accept. But gradually she noticed something the other Vethrians had missed. Pip never treated his intelligence as superiority. When Crystalline struggled with a problem, Pip would help her without making her feel stupid. He'd explain things clearly, patiently, celebrating when she understood rather than judging when she struggled. Eventually, Crystalline realized that Pip wasn't her competitor. He was just someone who loved learning and wanted everyone else to love it too. But while Pip's study group slowly warmed to him, the rest of the academy grew colder. It came to a head during a public lecture series. High Scholar Orthan had invited Pip to present his solution to the Heisenberg knot to the entire academic community. Scholars from across the galaxy would attend either in person or via broadcast. It was an enormous honor, usually reserved for senior professors or distinguished researchers. The lecture hall was packed. Every seat filled. Standing room only in the back. Screens showed the audience that thousands more were watching remotely. Lucy sat in the front row with Bront and Crystalline, all 3 wearing their formal academy uniforms in support of their friend. Pip stood at the podium so small that he needed a step stool to reach the controls. The holographic projectors activated, showing his solution in beautiful, glowing detail. He took a breath and began to speak. His voice was soft at first, nervous. But as he started explaining his work, his passion took over. He walked the audience through his thought process, showing how he'd seen the connections, found the patterns, woven everything together. He made complex physics accessible, explaining difficult concepts with clear examples and genuine enthusiasm. For 45 minutes, he held the audience captivated. Even the skeptics had to admit that his presentation was masterful. He didn't just show what he'd discovered. He made everyone understand why it mattered, how it connected to other fields, what new possibilities it opened up. When he finished, the hall erupted in applause. Lucy stood up, clapping hard. Brant's forehands produced impressive volume. Even Crystalline's body chimed in approval. But then the questions began. A Vethrian professor stood up, his crystal body reflecting light sharply. "Young Pip, your solution is impressive. But I must ask, how can we be certain you didn't use computational aids? Artificial intelligence? Enhanced neural processing? Your work seems beyond the capabilities of organic thought." The applause died down. The audience waited for Pip's response. "I didn't use any aids," Pip said simply. "I just thought about the problem, looked at the patterns, connected the pieces." Another voice, a Grexian scholar. "You completed work in days that has taken others decades. You excel in multiple disciplines simultaneously. This seems statistically impossible. Surely you must have some biological advantage we don't know about." Pip's tail drooped slightly. "I'm actually quite small for a Drakari. My people consider me defective. I have no special abilities. I just really like homework." A Mindari stepped forward, her telepathic voice projecting to everyone. "We have conducted studies. No known species can process information at the rate you demonstrate. We propose a mandatory biological scan to verify you are not using technological enhancements." The room buzzed with conversation. Lucy stood up angrily. "That's ridiculous. You're accusing him of cheating because he's better than you expected." "It's not about accusation," the Vethrian professor said coldly. "It's about academic integrity. If Pip has nothing to hide, he should welcome verification." High Scholar Orthan raised a hand for silence. "Pip has already been tested extensively. Professor Williams verified his work personally. The security footage shows no evidence of cheating. The biology department has already examined him. He is exactly what he appears to be, a naturally talented student." "Then explain his abilities," someone shouted from the back. "Explain how one student can outperform entire departments." Pip stood at the podium looking small and confused. "I don't understand why everyone is so upset. I'm just doing homework. I like learning." "Why is that wrong?" The Mindari spoke again. "It's not wrong. It's unnatural. Species evolve with certain intelligence ranges. Individuals have limits. You appear to have no limits. That threatens the fundamental understanding of how intelligence works." Lucy realized what was really happening. These scholars weren't worried about cheating. They were worried about their own status. Entire species had built their identities on being the smartest, the most advanced, the most capable. And here was a little dragon who did homework for fun and surpassed them all, making their pride and their hierarchies meaningless. "Maybe the problem isn't Pip," Lucy said loudly. "Maybe the problem is that we've all been thinking about intelligence wrong." The audience turned to look at her. She felt her heart pounding but continued. "We've turned learning into competition. We measure ourselves against each other instead of measuring ourselves against what we don't know. We focus on being better than others instead of being better than we were yesterday. Pip doesn't have that problem. He just loves learning. Maybe that's his real advantage. Not some biological enhancement, just genuine passion without ego." Some students nodded. Others looked thoughtful, but many still looked skeptical or resentful. A human professor stood up. Dr. Rhodes, who taught applied physics. "If I may add something," he said. "I've been watching Pip's progress with great interest. What he does reminds me of humanity's own history. We weren't the strongest species. We weren't the fastest. We weren't the smartest. But we loved solving problems. We loved figuring things out. We persisted. We asked questions. We never stopped being curious. That's why humans spread across the galaxy, not because we were superior, but because we refused to stop learning." He looked at Pip. "What I see in Pip is something very human, even though he's not human. Pure curiosity, pure love of discovery, no competition, no ego, just joy and understanding. Maybe that's what makes someone truly great, not raw intelligence, but the passion to use it." Pip listened to this, his golden eyes wide. "I like humans," he said quietly. "You understand. Learning should be joyful. Why would anyone want it to be anything else?" High Scholar Orthan stood. "This discussion has become more philosophical than productive. Pip's achievements stand on their own merit. I declare this matter closed. However, he looked around the audience. There will be a formal academic council meeting next week. We need to discuss how to handle exceptional students in the future, how to support them rather than question them. The lecture ended, but the controversy didn't. As students filed out, Lucy heard the whispers. He makes us all look stupid. How are we supposed to compete with that? It's not fair. He's breaking the system. Lucy found Pip sitting alone backstage looking sad. Hey, she said gently. You did great up there. Did I? Pip asked. Everyone seems angry. I don't want people to be angry. I just want to learn. I just want everyone to enjoy learning together. I know, Lucy said. But sometimes when someone is really good at something, it makes other people feel bad about themselves. It's not your fault, but it's real. Bront appeared, ducking through the doorway. Crystalline floated in behind him. We should celebrate, Bront announced. The little dragon gave an excellent presentation. My warrior's honor demands recognition of worthy achievement. I concur, Crystalline chimed. Perhaps I have been too focused on competition. Watching Pip work has taught me that collaboration produces better results than rivalry. Pip smiled, a real smile that made his scales shimmer. You're my friends, he said. That's better than any award. What none of them knew was that in conference rooms and private quarters across the station, groups were meeting. Committees were forming. Plans were being made. The academic establishment had been shaken, and now they were organizing their response. Some wanted to support Pip, to learn from him, to change how education worked. But others wanted to control him, limit him, find ways to prove he wasn't really as special as he seemed. And in the depths of space, Pip's own people, the Drakari High Council, had heard about his achievements. They were sending a delegation. The little dragon they had once rejected as defective was now making their entire species famous. They wanted him back. They wanted to claim him as one of their own. The controversy was only beginning. But Pip, innocent and joyful, just wanted to know what homework assignment was coming next. Red lights flashed throughout Academy Station Meridian. Emergency sirens wailed. Lucy jerked awake in her quarters, disoriented and confused. Her wall display showed the time as 3 a.m. Her communication device buzzed urgently with a station-wide emergency message. All students and faculty report to designated emergency shelters. This is not a drill. Dimensional stabilizers have failed. Repeat, dimensional stabilizers have failed. Lucy's blood went cold. The Academy Station existed at a junction point where 3 different dimensions of space-time intersected. It was a scientifically fascinating location, perfect for studying exotic physics, but it required constant dimensional stabilization to prevent the station from being torn apart by conflicting realities. If the stabilizers had failed, they had maybe 3 days before the station collapsed. She pulled on her clothes and ran into the corridor. Other students were emerging from their rooms, frightened and confused. Species that normally maintained dignified composure were openly panicking. The station trembled slightly, a feeling that made Lucy's stomach turn. That shouldn't be possible. Stations didn't shake. Lucy, Bront's voice boomed over the chaos. The big Grexian pushed through the crowd with Crystalline floating beside him. Have you seen Pip? No, why? Because if anyone can fix this, it's him, Bront said. Come on, they found Pip in the library. Of course he was in the library. While everyone else panicked, the little dragon was calmly reading technical manuals about dimensional mechanics on a holographic display. He looked up as they approached. Oh, hello, Pip said. Isn't this exciting? A real dimensional collapse. I've only read about these in theory. Exciting isn't the word I'd use, Lucy said. Pip, people are scared. The engineers can't fix it. I heard, Pip said, his tail swishing. They've been working for 2 hours already. The main control systems are fried. The backup systems are incompatible with the primary dimensional field, and the tertiary systems don't have enough power to maintain stability across 3 dimensions simultaneously. So we're doomed? Crystalline asked, her body dimming with fear. Not doomed, Pip said thoughtfully, just facing a very complex problem. It's like homework, but with higher stakes. His eyes brightened. Actually, this is the most interesting homework problem I've ever seen. Lucy stared at him. Pip, thousands of people could die. I know, Pip said, suddenly serious. That's why we need to solve it. And we need to solve it together. This problem is too big for one person, even me. We need a team. Different perspectives. Different skills. Different ways of thinking. Bront crossed his forearms. What do you need? I need structural engineers who understand stress mechanics. I need quantum physicists who can calculate dimensional interfaces. I need computer specialists who can rewrite system protocols in real time. And I need people who can work under pressure without panicking. I know structural engineering, Bront said. It's required training for all Grexian warriors. We learn to assess building integrity during combat. I can handle the quantum calculations, Crystalline offered. My species processes mathematical concepts faster than most computers. I can coordinate, Lucy said. I'm good at organizing people and keeping track of multiple tasks at once. Pip's whole body seemed to glow with happiness. Perfect. Let's go to the engineering section. We need to see the problem up close. They made their way through crowded corridors to the station's engineering level. Emergency crews worked frantically at control panels. Professor Williams was there, along with High Scholar Orthan and the station's chief engineer, a six-legged creature named Tech Supervisor Harmon. Pip, Professor Williams said, relief evident in his voice. Thank goodness. We need your help. I'm happy to help, Pip said, but I can't do this alone. My friends and I are working as a team. What's the current situation? Tech Supervisor Harmon pulled up schematics. The primary stabilizers overloaded during a routine maintenance cycle. When they failed, they damaged the backup systems. We're running on tertiary systems now, but they're losing power. We have 72 hours maximum before total collapse. Pip studied the schematics, his eyes moving rapidly. The problem is power distribution. The tertiary systems need to stabilize three-dimensional interfaces simultaneously, but they're designed to handle only one at a time. We need to find a way to either increase their power or decrease the load. We've tried everything, Harmon said, frustration evident. The power grid can't supply more energy without overloading, and we can't decrease the dimensional load without the station breaking apart. What if we phase the stabilization? Crystalline suggested. Instead of maintaining all three dimensions continuously, we alternate the stabilization in rapid sequence. Each dimension gets stabilized for a fraction of a second, cycling fast enough that the dimensional collapse can't begin. Harmon shook his head. The switching time would be too slow. Even a microsecond gap would allow dimensional bleeding. Unless we use quantum entanglement to eliminate the switching delay, Pip said excitedly. We could entangle the stabilizer so that one activates the instant the other deactivates. No gap. Instantaneous transfer. That's theoretically possible, Professor Williams said slowly, but the calculations required to maintain quantum entanglement across three separate systems, while they're under this kind of stress, would be incredibly complex. I can do the calculations, Crystalline said. If Pip can set up the initial equations, I can process the real-time adjustments. And I can monitor the structural integrity, Bront added. If any part of the station starts failing, I can identify it immediately so we can compensate. Lucy pulled up a scheduling program. I'll coordinate the implementation. We'll need to modify hardware, rewrite software, and synchronize everything perfectly. If I break it down into tasks, assign teams, and track progress, we can manage it. High Scholar Orthan watched this exchange with something like wonder. You're all first-year students. This is a station-critical emergency, and you're coordinating like experienced professionals. We're learning, Pip said simply. This is just a very important homework problem. For the next 70 hours, the Academy became a hive of coordinated activity. Pip designed the solution, breaking the impossible problem into manageable pieces. Crystalline processed calculations, her crystalline matrix glowing with computational effort. Bront crawled through maintenance shafts, his forearms making repairs and modifications that would have taken others days. Lucy coordinated dozens of students and faculty members, assigning tasks, tracking progress, making sure everyone knew what needed to happen and when. Other students volunteered to help. Mindari students used their telepathy to coordinate teams in different sections of the station. Vethrian students double-checked calculations with their perfect memory. Grexian students worked in the most dangerous areas, their physical strength and courage making them ideal for risky repairs. Human students ran logistics, bringing supplies, managing schedules, keeping morale up with encouraging words and practical support. Pip moved between different work areas, helping where needed, explaining concepts, solving problems as they arose. But he never worked alone. He made sure to teach as he went, explaining his reasoning so others could learn. When a Vetherian student struggled with a calculation, Pip sat with them patiently until they understood. When a Grexian team couldn't fit a modified component into place, Pip crawled into the tight space with them and worked alongside them. His small size actually an advantage. By hour 50, they had modified all the tertiary stabilizers. By hour 60, they had rewritten the control software. By hour 65, they had tested the quantum entanglement system and confirmed it worked. By hour 70, everything was ready for final implementation. The entire academy gathered in assembly halls and common areas to watch on displays. This was it. Either the solution would work and the station would survive, or it would fail and they'd need to begin emergency evacuation. Lucy stood in the main engineering control room with Pip, Bront, and Crystalline. Professor Williams and High Scholar Orthan watched from nearby. Tech Supervisor Harmon's 6 legs tapped nervously. "Ready?" Pip asked his team. "Ready?" They responded together. "Activating new stabilization system in 3, 2, 1, now." Pip pressed the control. For a moment nothing happened. Then the entire station hummed with a deep resonant frequency. The lights flickered. The displays showed dimensional readings fluctuating wildly. Lucy held her breath. Then slowly the readings stabilized. The dimensional interfaces locked into place. The quantum entanglement held. The tertiary stabilizers cycled perfectly, each one activating the instant the previous one deactivated, creating seamless coverage across all 3 dimensions. The station stopped shaking. The emergency lights turned off. The normal lighting returned. On every display throughout the academy, a single word appeared in green: stable. The assembly halls erupted in cheers. In the engineering control room, Tech Supervisor Harmon let out a sound that might have been a sob of relief. Professor Williams put his hand on Pip's small head. "You did it. You actually did it." "We did it," Pip corrected. "I couldn't have done this alone. Bront's engineering knowledge, Crystalline's calculations, Lucy's coordination, and everyone who helped, they all made this possible. This wasn't about one person being smart. This was about everyone working together." High Scholar Orthan stepped forward, his ancient face showing deep emotion. "What you have accomplished today goes beyond saving the station. You've demonstrated something that the Academy has forgotten. True learning isn't competition. True achievement isn't individual glory. The best solutions come from collaboration, from shared knowledge, from people with different strengths working toward a common goal." Bront placed one massive hand on Pip's shoulder. "The little dragon is right. I have learned more working with him for 3 days than I learned in 3 years of competitive study. He taught me that asking for help isn't weakness. Sharing knowledge isn't giving up advantage. These things make us all stronger." Crystalline's body chimed in agreement. "My species prides itself on independent intelligence. We believe that sharing knowledge dilutes personal achievement. But I understand now that this is foolish. Pip has shown me that teaching others, learning from others, growing together, these things increase knowledge instead of dividing it." Lucy smiled. "Humans figured this out a long time ago. We're not the smartest species individually, but we're really good at working together, sharing ideas, building on each other's knowledge. Maybe that's been our real strength all along." Students and faculty began gathering in the engineering section, wanting to thank the team that had saved them. But as the crowd grew, Lucy noticed something concerning. The Vetherian students stood in a separate group, talking among themselves. The Mindari kept to their own cluster. The different species were celebrating, but they were celebrating apart, not together. Before she could say anything, the crowd parted. A group of newcomers entered the engineering section. They were large, magnificent Drakari, adult dragons who made Pip look like a hatchling. Their scales were brilliant colors, golds and reds and silvers. Their wings were massive. Their presence was commanding. The lead Drakari spoke in a deep, resonant voice. "I am Counselor Zeth of the Drakari High Council. We have come for Pip." Pip looked up at them, confused. "Counselor? But my family told me I was too small, too weak. They said I was defective. They said I should never return home." "That was before," Counselor Zeth said. "Before you solved the Heisenberg knot. Before you saved this station. Before you brought honor to our species' name. The High Council has reconsidered. We want you to return to the Drakari homeworld. You will be given resources, support, the best teachers. You will become a great scholar of our people." "But I like it here," Pip said quietly. I like learning with my friends. You would be treated as a hero among our kind, another Drakari said. No longer rejected. No longer called defective. You would be celebrated. Pip's tail curled around himself. He looked small and uncertain. Lucy felt her heart break for him. This was what he'd wanted, wasn't it? Acceptance from his own people, recognition. But the look in his golden eyes wasn't happiness. It was confusion and sadness. May I think about it? Pip asked. This is a big decision. Of course, Counselor Zeth said. We will return tomorrow for your answer. The Drakari delegation left. The crowd slowly dispersed. Soon, only Pip's study group remained in the engineering section with the professors. What are you going to do? Lucy asked gently. Pip looked at her, then at Bront and Crystalline, then at all the students who had helped during the crisis. I don't know, he said honestly. I never wanted recognition or honor. I just wanted to learn. I just wanted to do homework. But now everyone wants something from me. My people want pride.
The Academy wants achievement.
Other students want me to be less. I just want to be me. Professor Williams knelt down to Pip's level. Then be you. Whatever choice you make it because it's what brings you joy, not because it's what others expect. High Scholar Orthan added, Tomorrow you must speak to the Academic Council as well. The controversy around you has not disappeared. Some members want to change how we evaluate exceptional students. Others want to place limits on individual achievement to maintain competitive balance. Your voice needs to be heard. Pip looked overwhelmed. I'm just a little dragon who likes homework. Why is everything so complicated? Because sometimes, Lucy thought, being yourself is revolutionary. And revolutions are never simple. But she didn't say that. Instead, she picked up Pip and hugged him gently. Whatever happens tomorrow, we're with you. That's what friends do. Bront nodded. Always. Crystalline chimed agreement. Without question. Pip's scales glowed softly, that same happy glow that appeared whenever he solved a good problem. Except this time, the problem wasn't mathematical. It was figuring out where he belonged in a universe that suddenly wanted to claim him. The Grand Assembly Hall could hold 10,000 beings. Every seat was filled. The walls were lined with standing observers. Holographic displays showed billions more watching from across the galaxy. Lucy had never seen the Academy so crowded. This wasn't just about one student anymore. This had become something bigger, something that would define how education worked across civilized space. Pip sat at the front, looking impossibly small in a chair designed for much larger beings. His legs dangled, not quite reaching the floor. Lucy, Bront, and Crystalline sat directly behind him, a show of support. The Drakari delegation occupied seats of honor to the left. The Academic Council sat in an elevated section, their faces serious and watchful. High Scholar Orthan called the assembly to order. His ancient voice carried through the hall without amplification. We are here to address the matter of exceptional students and how this academy should respond to them. Young Pip, you have been asked to speak to the assembled community about your experiences. The floor is yours. Pip climbed down from his chair and walked to the podium. He needed his step stool again. As he arranged it and climbed up, the massive hall was completely silent. 10,000 beings waited to hear what the little dragon would say. Pip looked out at the audience. His golden eyes were wide with nervousness. His tail wrapped tightly around the podium's base. He opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. He tried again. His voice came out as barely a whisper. I don't understand why everyone is so angry. The hall remained silent. Pip took a shaky breath and continued, his voice growing slightly stronger. I came to this academy because I wanted to learn. I love learning. Every problem is a puzzle. Every equation is a mystery. Every concept is a door to understanding something new about the universe. To me, homework isn't work. It's play. It's joy. It's the best part of my day. Some murmurs from the audience. Pip's scales dimmed slightly, but he pressed on. But ever since I solved the Heisenberg knot, everyone has been upset. Some people say I'm cheating. Some people say I'm making them look bad. Some people say I have an unfair advantage. I don't understand any of this. I never tried to make anyone look bad. I never wanted an advantage. I just wanted to do homework. A Vethrian professor stood up. Young Pip, surely you understand that your abilities threaten the established academic hierarchy. Species have built their identities on intellectual superiority. Your performance challenges centuries of understanding about cognitive limits. Pip looked at the professor with genuine confusion. But why would you build identity on being better than others? Isn't that exhausting? Having to constantly prove you're smarter, faster, more capable, doesn't that take away from the actual joy of learning? The professor sat down looking uncomfortable. A Mindari scholar spoke next, their telepathic voice projecting to everyone. You demonstrate abilities that seem impossible. This makes others feel inadequate. Surely you can see why this creates resentment? No, Pip said softly. I really can't. If someone else is good at something, I think that's wonderful. It means they can teach me. It means we can learn together. I don't feel inadequate when I meet someone smarter than me. I feel excited because they might show me something new. Lucy stood up from her seat. May I say something? High Scholar Orthan nodded. Lucy walked to stand beside Pip at the podium. I'm human. My species isn't known for superior intelligence. We're not crystalline computers like the Vethrians. We're not telepathic like the Mindari. We're not ancient scholars like the Drakari. We're just humans. Average intelligence, average lifespan, average everything. She looked out at the audience. But humans learned something important early in our history. We learned that competition makes you faster, but collaboration makes you better. We learned that being the smartest person in the room isn't as important as being in a room with smart people who share knowledge. We learned that lifting others up doesn't pull you down, it raises everyone. Bront stood up and walked to the podium as well, his heavy footsteps echoing. I am Grexian. My people are warriors. We value strength, combat prowess, individual glory. We compete in everything. We rank ourselves constantly. The strongest lead. The weak follow. This is our way. He placed a massive hand gently on Pip's head. But this little dragon taught me something. He showed me that cooperation produces results that competition never could. When we worked to save the station, we didn't compete. We collaborated. Each person contributed their strength. And together we achieved what none of us could achieve alone. That is a warrior's wisdom I never learned in combat. Crystalline floated to join them. I am Vethrian. We pride ourselves on perfect memory, flawless calculation, and superior intelligence. We believed we were the galaxy's greatest minds, and then Pip arrived and surpassed us in a matter of weeks. Her crystalline body chimed softly. At first I was angry. How dare this tiny creature challenge our superiority? But then I watched him work. I watched him help others. I watched him celebrate when someone else understood something new. And I realized that we Vethrians had made a terrible mistake. We had confused intelligence with wisdom. We had confused knowledge with understanding. Pip has both. We only had one. More students began standing up. A Mindari student. Pip tutored me for 3 hours on quantum mechanics. He never made me feel stupid for not understanding immediately. He just kept explaining in different ways until I got it. Then he celebrated my success like it was his own. A Grexian student. I asked Pip to help with my engineering project. He not only helped me solve it, he showed me 3 different solutions and explained which one I would learn the most from using. He cared more about my education than about showing off his own knowledge. A Vethrian student. Pip could have kept his Heisenberg knot solution secret. He could have published it under only his name and received all the glory. Instead, he shared it freely with everyone and credited every person who had ever worked on the problem before him. He acted with more honor than any of us. More and more students stood sharing stories. The theme was consistent. Pip had never used his intelligence to dominate others. He had used it to help, to teach, to share. While everyone else competed. For status, Pip just wanted everyone to learn and grow together. Professor Williams stood up. If I may speak, I've been teaching for 30 years. I've seen brilliant students before. Prodigies, geniuses, students who excelled far beyond their peers. But every single one of them was competitive. They wanted to be the best. They wanted recognition. They wanted status. He looked at Pip. This is the first time I've met someone who is genuinely brilliant and completely without ego. Pip doesn't care about being the best. He doesn't care about status or recognition. He just loves learning. And you know what? That pure passion makes him a better learner than any genius motivated by competition. Because he's not afraid to fail. He's not afraid to ask questions. He's not afraid to admit when he doesn't understand something. He just wants to figure it out. A long silence followed. The massive audience seemed to be processing everything they'd heard. Then a voice spoke from the academic council section. It was Counselor Dren, a Vethrian elder known for his strict traditional views. "This is all very touching," Counselor Dren said, his crystalline voice sharp. "But it doesn't address the fundamental problem. If we allow students like Pip to excel without limits, what happens to everyone else? How can average students compete? How can we maintain standards when one individual makes everyone else look inadequate?" Pip's tail drooped. Lucy felt anger rising in her chest, but before she could speak, Pip's small voice cut through the hall. "Why does anyone need to compete?" Counselor Dren looked surprised. "Excuse me? Why does learning have to be competition?" Pip repeated, louder this time. "The universe doesn't care about your rankings or your grades or your status. The universe has infinite mysteries, infinite questions, infinite things to discover. There's enough homework for everyone. There's enough learning for everyone. Nobody loses when someone else understands something new. We all win because now there's one more person who can teach, who can help, who can discover the next thing." He looked around the massive hall, his golden eyes blazing with passion now, all nervousness gone. "You've turned education into a weapon, a way to prove superiority, a way to rank species and individuals and determine worth. But that's not what learning is supposed to be. Learning is supposed to be wonderful. Learning is supposed to be joyful. Learning is supposed to be about understanding the universe, not about being better than the person sitting next to you." Pip's scales glowed brighter with every word. "I don't understand why you're all so worried about being the smartest. Don't. You want to know how stars form? Don't you want to understand how consciousness emerges from matter? Don't you want to solve the mysteries that nobody has solved yet? Those things are exciting. Those things are amazing. Why would you waste time competing with each other when you could be exploring the universe together?" The hall was absolutely silent. 10,000 beings, billions watching remotely, all frozen by the simple passion in the little dragon's voice. "I came to this academy to learn," Pip continued. "I thought everyone else came here to learn too. But instead, I found people worried about grades, worried about rankings, worried about looking stupid or being surpassed. And I just don't understand it. Life is too short to spend it worrying about being better than others. Life should be spent discovering things and sharing what you discover, and celebrating when others discover things too." He paused, looking down at his small claws. "I've been thinking about the Drakari delegation's offer. They want me to return home and be celebrated as a hero. They want to give me resources and recognition. But you know what? I don't want that. I don't want to be special, I don't want to be celebrated, I just want to do homework with my friends." Counselor Zeth stood up from the Drakari delegation. "Pip, you would bring honor to our entire species." "But I don't care about honor," Pip said simply. "I care about learning. And I learn better here with Lucy and Bront and Crystalline and everyone else who wants to study together. I learn better when I can help someone understand something and they can help me understand something else. That's what makes learning joyful." High Scholar Orthan rose slowly. The ancient being looked at Pip with something like wonder. "In 500 years of education leadership, I have never heard anyone articulate what you just said. We have built an entire galactic educational system on competition, on ranking, on comparative achievement, and you're suggesting we've been doing it wrong the entire time." "Not wrong exactly," Pip said carefully. "Just missing the point. Competition can be fun sometimes, like a game. But when competition becomes the goal instead of learning being the goal, that's when it stops being fun. That's when it stops being joyful." A Mindari elder stood up, her ancient telepathic voice filled with emotion. "Our species has been teaching for 10,000 years. We have built temples of knowledge. We have preserved wisdom across millennia. And yet this small dragon, in a few simple words, has shown us something we failed to see. We have been teaching our children to be superior instead of teaching them to be curious." A Grexian general stood next. "We train our young warriors to be the strongest, the fastest, the most skilled. We teach them that being second is the same as being last. But when the little dragon and his team saved the station, they didn't succeed because they were competing. They succeeded because they were cooperating. Perhaps we have been training our people incorrectly as well. More voices joined in, from different species, different cultures, different perspectives. All of them coming to the same realization. The system they had built, the way they had structured education, it had lost sight of why learning mattered in the first place. Professor Williams spoke again. I propose we call this the PIP principle. Learning should be joyful. Knowledge should be shared freely. Achievement should be celebrated in others, not resented. Cooperation should be valued over competition. And most importantly, curiosity should be the driving force of education, not status or rank or comparative superiority. Murmurs spread through the audience, some approving, some uncertain, some still resistant. But the tone had shifted. Something fundamental had changed in the conversation. Lucy leaned down and whispered to Pip, "You're changing the galaxy's entire approach to education, do you realize that?" Pip looked confused. "I just want people to enjoy homework." She laughed despite the serious moment. "That's the same thing, Pip. That's exactly the same thing." High Scholar Orthan called for order. "We will put forth a motion. This academy, and all institutions that follow our guidance, will implement new educational principles based on what we've discussed today. Collaboration over competition, joy in learning over anxiety about ranking, celebration of others' achievements over resentment, shared knowledge over hoarded expertise. All in favor?" Hands, claws, tentacles, and various other appendages rose throughout the hall. Not everyone voted yes. Some remained opposed, clinging to the old ways. But the majority supported the change. The motion passed. Furthermore, High Scholar Orthan continued, "Pip, if you choose to remain at this academy, we would like to establish something new, not a competition, not a ranking, but a learning community. A place where students from all backgrounds and abilities can study together for the joy of it, where those who understand something can teach those who don't, and everyone celebrates everyone else's growth. Would you be interested in helping create such a community?" Pip's eyes lit up. "Like a homework club?" "Exactly like a homework club," High Scholar Orthan said, smiling. "Open to anyone who wants to join. No entry requirements except genuine curiosity. No rankings, no grades, just learning for the sake of learning." "Yes." Pip practically bounced with excitement. "Yes, I would love that. Can we start today? Can we work on problems together? Can we—" He stopped himself, looking embarrassed. "Sorry, I got too excited." "Don't apologize for passion," High Scholar Orthan said warmly. "That passion is exactly what we need more of." Counselor Zeth approached the podium. "Pip, the Drakari delegation came to bring you home, but I see now that this is your home. You belong here with those who understand you. However, know that you are welcome among our people any time. We were wrong to reject you. Your size does not determine your worth. We see that now." "Thank you," Pip said graciously. "Maybe I can visit sometime? And maybe I can bring my friends? I'd love to show them the Drakari homeworld and learn about our history together." "You would be honored guests," Counselor Zeth said. He bowed his large head to the tiny dragon. "You have taught us all a valuable lesson today." The assembly concluded with a standing ovation. But this time the applause felt different to Lucy. It wasn't polite or formal. It was genuine, enthusiastic. People were celebrating not because they were supposed to, but because something important had happened. Something had changed. As the crowd dispersed, students approached Pip asking about the homework club. Hundreds of them, from every species, every background, every skill level. They all wanted to be part of this new way of learning. "We'll meet in the library," Pip told them excitedly. "Every day after classes. Bring whatever you're working on. Bring problems you're struggling with. Bring things you're curious about. We'll figure it all out together." "What if we don't understand something?" a nervous Vethrian student asked. "Then we'll explain it in different ways until you do understand," Pip said simply. "That's the whole point. We help each other. What if someone asks a stupid question?" a Grexian student asked. "There are no stupid questions," Lucy interjected. "Only questions we haven't answered yet." Bront nodded. "And if anyone makes fun of someone for asking questions, they'll answer to me." He cracked his knuckles with all four hands simultaneously. The sound was impressive. Days turned into weeks. The homework club grew. What started as a small group became dozens, then hundreds, then thousands. Students who had never spoken to each other before worked side by side. Humans helped Vethrians understand creative problem-solving. Grexians showed others how to approach challenges with determination. Mindari shared techniques for focus and concentration. Everyone taught. Everyone learned. The competitive atmosphere of the academy softened. Students still worked hard, but the anxiety decreased. People stopped worrying so much about rankings and started focusing on understanding. Professors noticed that class discussions became richer because students weren't afraid to admit confusion. Study groups became genuine collaborations instead of competitions to see who could finish first. Other academies across the galaxy heard about the change. Some resisted, clinging to traditional competitive models. But many started implementing their own versions of the PIP principle. Slowly, educational philosophy began to shift throughout civilized space. Lucy watched it all with amazement. One small dragon who just wanted to enjoy homework had sparked a revolution. Not through force or demands, but through simple, honest passion for learning. One evening, she found Pip in the library, surrounded by students of various species. They were working on an advanced physics problem together, discussing approaches, sharing ideas, celebrating small breakthroughs. Pip sat in the middle of them, barely visible among the larger beings, but clearly the heart of the group. Okay, so if we rotate the equation this way, Pip was saying, do you see how it connects to what Resh discovered earlier? And that means Silva's approach might work if we modify it slightly. Lucy smiled. This was what education was supposed to look like. Not a battle to determine the smartest, but a collaborative exploration of the universe's mysteries. Not a competition to rank the worthy, but a shared journey of discovery. Pip looked up and saw her watching. He waved a tiny claw happily. Lucy, come help us. We're working on gravitational wave propagation. It's fascinating. She joined them, settling into the group. Bront was there too, his massive form hunched over a data pad. Crystalline floated nearby, her body glowing with the pleasure of collaborative calculation. Students from a dozen species worked together, teaching and learning from each other. Is this what you imagined when you first came to the academy? Lucy asked Pip quietly. Pip thought about it, his tail swishing contentedly. I imagined doing homework. And this is homework. The best kind of homework. The kind where everyone learns together and everyone celebrates together and nobody feels bad because someone else is good at something. So yes, this is exactly what I imagined. This is perfect. Months later, Professor Williams stopped by the library late one evening. The homework club was still going strong. Students working in groups scattered throughout the large space. He found Pip helping a struggling student with a problem. His patient voice explaining the same concept for the 5th time in 5 different ways until the student's face lit up with understanding. Professor? Pip noticed him and waddled over. Look, Terrence finally understood wave-particle duality. Isn't that wonderful? It is wonderful, Professor Williams agreed. Pip, I wanted to thank you. Thank me? For what? For reminding me why I became a teacher. I'd forgotten somewhere along the way. I'd started measuring my success by how many students got high grades instead of by how many students truly understood and loved the material. You reminded me that the joy of learning is the point, not the achievement, not the ranking, the joy. Pip tilted his small head. You're a good teacher, Professor. You helped me love learning even more than I already did. That's what good teachers do. Professor Williams smiled. I think you're the one teaching us, Pip. All of us. As he left the library, Professor Williams looked back at the scene. Hundreds of students from across the galaxy, working together, learning together, celebrating together. No competition, no resentment, no anxiety about being surpassed. Just pure, joyful exploration of knowledge, and at the center of it all, a little dragon who loved homework had left every student speechless, not by being superior, but by showing them what they'd forgotten. That learning was meant to be wonderful. That knowledge was meant to be shared. That the universe had enough mysteries for everyone, and discovering them together was so much better than competing alone. The homework club continued long after Pip eventually graduated, long after he'd gone on to bigger things, teaching across the galaxy, helping establish new educational programs based on joy rather than competition. The students who'd learned with him spread his philosophy wherever they went. Species that had been rivals began collaborating. Knowledge that had been hoarded began flowing freely. Education transformed, and whenever anyone asked what started this change, the answer was always the same. A little dragon who loved homework showed us that the best questions to ask aren't, "Am I the smartest?" Or "Did I do better than others?" The best question is simply, "Did I learn something wonderful today?" And when the answer to that question is yes, everyone wins.